Here's the problem child. It's another ghosty. And then finally I'll tell my opponent, and now I'll proceed to stack the deck.
I appreciate that. At least you mentioned it too. But I could just imagine being your opponent. And I'm like, just watching you. I'm like, infinite loop and then stack your deck. Like, really?
I'm not sure where this name came from, but people keep calling it Lechuga.
Oh, Lechuga. Lechuga is Spanish for lettuce.
Oh, okay. That makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, Lechuga. Yeah, that's hilarious. What's up, amigos? Commander Jaime here today, and I'm your host over here with Baowow. Baowow, you want to say a couple words?
Hello, everyone. I'm Baowow, and I'm the maker of the Magnolia Loop. Really sorry about that.
No, it's a really interesting deck, and I understand the sentiment where people think it's like, oh, it's another loop deck, right? But nonetheless, with the prior video that I covered your combo, your loop, in a visual way, it got a lot of attention, and people were interested in seeing it. So I felt, since you just recently topped again with the deck, and I think it was worth making a deck discussion video since you recently just topped in BCS Mexico. So did you want to explain or kind of start diving into it? Like, how was your trip and experience at BCS Mexico?
BCS Mexico was amazing. In fact, if anyone's willing to go and travel for any BCSs, 100% put Mexico on the radar. The community there was absolutely lovely. The players were amazing. A lot of great practice before the tournaments, great practice after the tournaments. Had fun with the dinners with the guys, and everything at Mexico was just amazing. And they were very great at accommodating for the fact that I was unable to really speak Spanish at all.
That's big, actually, because like when you're not native, like you don't know much or how to say basic things. So that's actually really helpful. Good to know. Awesome. And thanks for sharing that too. So you topped twice, actually, which is really cool. And not only that you topped twice, you qualified for Worlds technically twice. Can you elaborate a little bit how that worked out?
Yeah, so it was a little interesting because I got 2 unsponsored invites for one for standard and one for premium. And of course, because Worlds happens on the same day for all events, you can only go for one of the events. And in this situation, because of how the event works, they provide you an email where they ask you to pick one of the 2 events to go to. And then the unsponsored invite that I received for the other event would be passed down to 4th place.
Oh, okay, cool. That works out. And that person's happy too.
I'm very happy that they can actually get the opportunity to go to Worlds, because I did kind of rob them in my a 4th place match where I may have hit a defensive over trigger against them.
Those moments, those are Vanguard moments. You know, you can't control them sometimes. They just kind of happen. But I'm glad it worked out either way. I know people want to really start digging into your mindset. Like, people saw the list, people have seen the video that I did about the combo, they kind of understand that, but the missing piece of the puzzle is the player. And it's like, how do you take a deck to a regional and perform? So like, what was your mindset like going into the event? Why did you pick Magnolia Loop still, even though it's kind of been more known lately, especially since you topped prior?
So one thing is that my deck list, the way it's built, is very focused on putting some mind games on my opponent, which is why I was okay with bringing Magnolia Loop again. More importantly, people just aren't very practiced into the matchup, and they don't really know all the ins and outs and how to beat the deck, which is why I'm safe in bringing the deck one more time before the ban list.
That's a good call, actually, because a lot of people, when they think of loop decks, they think about like Fenrir, they think about like the GBA from Spike Brothers. I guess that kind of leads me to another question. Like, was there a thought of you picking a different loop deck, or did you feel like granblue or Magnolia just kind of like ran with you or stuck with you or anything like that specifically?
I just wanted to go with one last hurrah with the deck because I know it's probably going to get hit in December. Fair
enough. That's a good reason too. Like, if you enjoy the deck and you feel like you may not play this ever again, you might as well milk it while you can.
Also, it's granblue. It's my main clan, and I really do enjoy playing granblue, even though my locals will hear me complain about this deck 24/7. So always glad to be able to play this deck.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, if it's your bread and butter, it's what makes enjoyable playing a TCG in the first place, right? So we could start diving into your deck list too, and maybe that could elaborate to like why you play certain cards at certain ratios, how they kind of came up at the event too. So we could start diving into it.
All right, so let me start off with the main deck, and we'll start off with the grade 3s here. So the first card on the list is Strange Fruit Preparation. This is a common from DBT04, so this is from way long back. This has a very unique effect where one place from drop zone, no cost, you just choose a blitz order to add it back to your hand. The reason why this card's extremely strong is because you can effectively call this card over and over again to continuously refuel your hand without needing to lose a card in your deck. Because, spoiler alert, we are playing Elementary Sanctitude in my list. The card just says, add Elementary Sanctitude back to your list. It's very strong in that aspect, but this also enables you to be able to infinite loop while your opponent's on grade 2 without the need of Sincere yet.
On grade 2? Wow. So let's stop right there, actually. So the deck list that you had me use to demonstrate the loop did not have this card, right?
That is correct, yes.
And so what was that change where you can do this on why your opponent's at grade 2? Can you elaborate a little more on that turn?
Yes. So the problem with the previous deck list, and that's the reason why I brought it to Toronto in the first place, was that you weren't able to actually do the infinite loop because Sincere yet requires your opponent to be on grade 3.
Right.
Which means that you could never get the additional card in your deck reliably in order for you to actually get the counter charge off of Cutlass. Most of the time you'd end up in a situation where you'd have to call Mick again to actually get the card back in your deck, but then you wouldn't be able to use Sleeve Tugging Bell to reset your bind zone. Strange Fruit Preparation lets you be able to handle that situation because you don't need to draw from your deck to refill your hand. You can just continue to add the Elementaria back to your hand from drop zone.
Oh, I see. Gotcha. Because that was the only really holding thing. The one thing that was holding you back because it had to look at your opponent's Vanguard grade.
Yes.
So then was your Magnolia like just your grade 3? You didn't even have to stride technically?
You would have to stride. So it only came up in practice because a lot of players realized what I was trying to do.
Okay, yeah,
you would Seabreeze your opponent and catch them off guard that way.
Okay, gotcha. Because I'm like, how would you do this? Are you going first? So you're grade 3, but then that's why I was thinking. I'm like, are you still stuck on grade 3 yourself while doing this whole loop?
Seabreeze is what really makes the deck. And
Seabreeze. Okay, gotcha. Yeah. Okay, that makes more sense. Okay, gotcha. Because like again, a new player that like looks at this list and they're like, how do I do this while they're at turn 2, grade 2, and I'm at like grade 3 barely, that type of deal. So I like to break that down. Yep. Cool. But makes sense with this card. So like you felt like this was a big help in this event?
Oh, this card helped tremendously because we were performing the loop where you add cards back to your hand, and Strange Fruit Preparation just makes that loop so much faster and so much easier to understand for my opponent. So it was a lot easier to be able to handle these loops.
Good. Awesome. Makes sense. Glad it worked out.
So the next cards afterwards. So we have the 4 Magnolias. As mentioned before, and you do need the original Magnolia name because of Daimainaru, which will be a card we cover later. And we do need a Sylvan Beast grade 3, as when we stride, we can have a Sylvan Beast grade 4 for Banaspati. So in this situation, the original Magnolia was just the best card to run as my main Vanguard.
Makes sense.
So this is where we come up to the first flex spot of my deck. So Islands Flanger is currently on the V premium ban list. This card is completely unfair and probably should be banned at this point. However, this is my current flex slot of the list because this lets me have a very easy win condition against decks like Genesis. It's strictly to dodge the Veritrum matchup, where my opponent has the ability to use Veritrum to attempt to call on top of one of my standing rearguard circles. Yes. And I can look to bypass it by using Flanger to then be able to do enough damage by passing enough criticals onto the Flanger to then it can never guard.
Makes sense. Because at that point, it's too late.
It's too late.
Very good. Afterwards,
we have probably the card that was not expecting to be abused. We have Hakusui and Remrad. Or I'm not sure where this name came from, but people keep calling it Lechuga.
Oh, Lechuga. Lechuga is Spanish for lettuce.
Oh, okay. That makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, Lechuga. Yeah, that's hilarious.
But yeah, so
I got you, my Spanish speaking folks.
So this card here is completely unfair because of the class 1 effect, where you get to choose one of the 2 effects. The second effect is not as impactful, giving your Vanguard a plus 5k power. Obviously, we can just infinite power to our Vanguard by using Mick the Ghosty. So it is the red text that you get that is the most important here. This red text does stack, and it gives the effect where all your rearguards placed by card abilities this turn gain plus 5,000 power. Because we have a loop where we can continuously loop Hakusui back to our hand, it means that we can continuously add it back to our hand to then recall it, to then gain the red text ability, and then loop that over and over again. So that way every single card called by card ability has infinite power.
That's insane. I didn't realize you could do that infinitely. Wow. Okay.
It was not very fun to do because my opponents would ask a lot about why this works. But because we are getting a red text ability, it's not just cards on the board. it's very, very strong.
Yeah, no, that's a good point too, because like you're infinitely getting the red text, basically. Yeah, I gotcha. That's very cool.
And this card is only a 1 of my list, as you can see, because if this card ever goes to damage, we'll just go back to doing the standard Mick the Ghosty combos, where we're just giving 4 units infinite power, and one of them will just be my flanger for backup.
Makes sense.
So next card is the bread and butter Banaspati. This card just says Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1, call 2 cards.
Yes.
This card just says it does everything granblue would want, because one of the problems with granblue is that every card only calls 1 additional card from the drop zone.
Yep.
And so if you want to call multiple cards onto the board, you have to go through a very specific chain of calls, which means that you have to have very specific cards on the board, and you end with one flex unit on the board, basically.
Yes.
But Banaspati lets you end up with 2 flex units on the board, which means that you get to just call basically 2 cards that draw, a card that lets you reset, and a card that draws, and it just continuously adds advantages to your hand.
Yeah, it's a really good card. Like even like early granblue back in the day, I felt like it was power creeped. Like it was like Counterblast 2 to just revive 1 unit, and then how far you've come to like an actual rearguard with 1 CB, bring 2, you know?
It's, you can see where the power creep has gone with this card. But great card. If you want to hit Magnolia Loop, this card has to go, unfortunately. And if this card goes, the entire loop goes with it.
Makes sense. Yep.
Then we have the one of the Daimai Naru. As mentioned before, this card does require your Vanguard to be a Sylvanhorn Beast King Magnolia. And unfortunately, this is why we can't run Patriarch. I'm so sorry for people who want me to be playing Patriarch.
Oh, this one actually looks for the specific Magnolia. Okay, got it.
This one looks for the specific Magnolia. However, this card does not say on place during main phase. This card just says on place, which is extremely important, because this lets you use Bartholomew to get 3 extra attacks rather than only 2 extra attacks.
That's really good, because you call the 3 units and you make one of them attack from the back row.
Yep.
Gotcha.
And as well as this card just lets you set up your back row attackers during the main phase, so you can have just you can just live the Magnolia dream of having everything attack in the back row.
That's so very cool.
And then next card, so this is also another flex spot. This card is not mandatory. So this is Jesse the Ghosty. I unfortunately have a random nickname. I call this card God half the time, because it does everything granblue would want and more. So it's a body that comes out for free from the drop zone, which means that if you're not very proficient at milling your own deck, Jesse the Ghosty is a very easy card to use to get an extra body on the board after you have rested 2 rearguards, to then be able to use it and another rearguard to rest to mill 5 more cards.
Right, because of Navigator. I gotcha.
Because of Navigator, yes. Also, the retiring 2 rearguards is kind of important when you're trying to do the stacking play without Quincy the Ghosty, as it just makes it easier where you don't have to waste hand to actually get the 2 Mick the Ghosties back on the top 3 cards of your deck.
Right, gotcha.
This card also just says end of battle, countercharge, which is crazy, especially when your opponent attempts to use Honolly against you, where you can use Jesse as the 5th attack to counterblast 1 to attack with it, but then countercharge the CB you just used, and that way you can get easy 7-8 attacks.
Yeah, that's true.
So Jesse the Ghosty, it's still in there just in case I'm fighting Honolly, but you do not have to play this card. I just think this card is too good to pass up.
No, that's good.
Columbard, I don't think he needs much of an introduction. A Foolish Burial on a body that's also Monster Reborn is crazy.
Yes, the perfect Yu-Gi-Oh analogy, actually.
I don't really understand how this card was printed in the first place. This card is just miles ahead of, it's the card quality of Columbard is way stronger than basically every other card in the game. So I don't know why this card was printed, how this card was printed, especially in the state that it's in. But we have the card. Why not take advantage of it? You only need 2 copies because, again, you can mill it easily and then just revive it.
True.
So Greed Shade, we have bumped up to 2 copies in this list because Greed Shade is kind of important. It's one of the easiest ways to add any card from your drop zone back into your hand. There is a cost, which is discarding a card from your hand, but because we can add infinite cards back to our hand with the loop, the cost isn't really there. And Greed Shade is just really good because early game, if you're missing the Magnolia, you can just use Navigator to try to mill out your deck and use Megarbone to call out Greed Shade to then re-add the Magnolia back to your hand.
Yeah, it's a really good consistency boost as you're writing up.
Yep, and it's just really strong. So in the grade 1 slots, we're still playing the 1 copy of Sincere Yet. We're only playing it just because I find it just muscle memory. It's comfort for me to use Sincere Yet during my loops. This card you do not have to run. You can just play an extra copy of Strange Fruit Preparation if you're worried. But Sincere Yet for me was just the easiest way to handle the loop.
Gotcha. Was that like when I was doing the demonstration too, I noticed this card it would just bottom deck itself. So I always felt like this card was always adding to the deck.
Yes. The main idea of Sincere Yet was to always mill it with Cutlass, so that way you can return it back to the deck and never deck yourself out. It was
because of Cutlass milling something, you needed something to go back, and that's why you had 2. Okay,
yes, that is correct. Also, the reason why I ran 2 and only 3 Negerbones in my original list was because you only needed a combination of 3 of those cards to be able to do the infinite loop. Either it's 2 Sincere Yet, 1 Negerbone, 2 Negerbones, 1 Sincere Yet, or 3 Negerbones. All work perfectly fine for doing the infinite loop, which is why I had done it in that specific ratio.
Oh, okay. Makes sense. Cool.
Now we're also playing 1 original Cutlass, so 1 Dancing Cutlass from DBT02.
Wow, that is the original Cutlass.
DBT02. This is just the reprint version. The reason why I'm playing this card is because we only really need 2 V Cutlasses. We don't need the third one. It's just more overkill if we have it. So the original Cutlass lets us Soul Blast 2 to draw a card, which is very helpful when our Rough Seas Banshees get stuck in Soul.
Oh, I see. No, it's really good because you can get them out and just reuse them. Yep.
Getting the Rough Seas Banshees out of Soul was very important. A Navigator, I don't think there needs to be a lot to be said with this card. Rest 2 rear guards, mill the top 5 cards of your deck. This card just says Turbo granblue, do whatever you want with the deck.
I love playing this back with Night Rosemore too. Yep. And the biggest thing that people don't realize is it's not a hard one to return at all. So as long as you have rear guards, like 2 of them to rest, you could just keep going.
I think it's absolutely absurd when you think that this was the quality of commons we received back in V Series compared to what we're currently getting now.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah, I know, right? Eventually I got a reprint, so we got a shiny version. But
yeah, so my deck list does run the triple rare version, but this was a common from Moonlight to Butterflies.
I know, right?
Speaking of which, Dancing Cutlass was a rare from the first V set that had granblue.
Yeah, I think so. Like very early ones. Yeah.
Yeah. This card is not fair. This just says countercharge for free, basically. Especially the way that we've built the deck. It's very helpful with getting yourself down to 1 card in deck, as long as you have 2 Cutlasses in drop zone, it's an additional body on the board that also mills 1 card. So notably, this card on average mills 3.5 cards from your deck, which is extremely helpful for not wasting any cards in hand, especially when you're low on hand and you need to try to perform the loop with like maybe 3 or 4 cards in hand. This card just says make your life a lot easier. Negerbone, I don't think I need to say much about this card. This card should be gone. This card just says your drop zone is your hand.
Yes. Really just revive anything without a CB cost. Yep.
Yeah, it's only a discard, which means you're effectively trading the card from hand for the card in drop zone. It's completely free, especially with how Stoicheia and granblue as a whole, a lot of their effects don't say on place from hand, they just say on place.
Yep, super big.
Also, it returns itself back to the bottom of the deck, which is not a cost. It is actually a benefit.
Yes.
Additionally, we're playing 2 copies of Sleeve Tugging Bell. Because we're trying to abuse Dancing Cutlass, being able to put cards from your bind zone back into your drop zone is extremely important. As well as if you fight Narukami, just sometimes they can bind key cards in your drop zone because you had to mill early. So Sleeves return those cards back into your drop zone to then continue on with the loop.
Gotcha. Did it come up at the regional? Because I think you faced at least 1 Narukami, right?
I fought Narukami in top 4, and the Sleeve Tugging Bell did matter because he bound 1 Negerbone, which was the only Negerbone I found until the bottom 10 cards of my deck. So it was fairly important to get to the loop, but unfortunately, I wasn't able to clinch the win.
I gotcha. Well, Bell was working against Narukami, so it did what it did.
And it's doing its job really well. Here's the problem child. It's another Ghosty. So Quincy the Ghosty is a pretty old card. It's a common as well. So I don't know how this card was a common, especially since it just says stack your deck. You would counter. So the card has the effect in your drop zone to counterblast 1, choose a grade 0 rearguard, and put it to the bottom of your deck. Then you have to call this card to an open rearguard circle, which is usually the spot where the rearguard used to be on. And the reason why this card was really strong is because you can start stacking stand triggers, over triggers, or crit triggers back on to the bottom of your deck. Depending on your list, you can also stack some heal triggers if you're running some grade 0 heals. My current list doesn't run any grade 0 heals because I'm a little too worried about dying. but in some lists, you can afford to play some grade 0 heals if you need to. And it just lets you stack your deck to basically make it so you have the perfect drive checks on your when you're trying to kill your opponent.
Yeah. What was the iconic quote that you said?
I love declaring what I'm doing with my steps. So I'll start saying, I'll start by adding all my cards back to my hand. And I'll say, then I'll perform the infinite loop to get infinite power. And then finally, I'll tell my opponent, and now I'll proceed to stack the deck.
I appreciate that. At least you mentioned it too. But I could just imagine being your opponent. And I'm like, just watching you. I'm like, infinite loop and then stack your deck. Like, really?
It was. I felt like I needed to announce
That's good.
I was taking, just so that my opponent wasn't super lost when I was performing the loop.
Right.
But thinking back on it now, I kind of feel like I was a little bit BMing my opponent.
Did you have like a judge almost every round? Kind of like check on it, or people were like, I know what this is, or like, okay, this makes sense. You know,
the first couple rounds I had a judge with me, but then afterwards I just had like 2 judges hovering around me, but they didn't have to be directly watching my match after that.
Oh, okay.
There in case there was any kind of judge calls asking like, hey, can you do this? Or hey, like, why does this get power? And like
a quick thing.
To help. Yep.
Good. Okay, that's helpful too, because sometimes players are like, wait, can you do that?
I did have to clarify with the judge on the first day I was there. I showed him the infinite loop, I think I only showed him 3 variations of the infinite loop, just to make sure that every step was okay. And they were like, yeah, this is fine. You should be fine. Everyone here should understand that. And unfortunately, my deck list got leaked because I was explaining the loop.
So somebody else was probably watching that. Oh, okay.
Yep. It was, I mean, I was glad that people were actually interested because premium, it's very hard to get people interested in premium. So the fact that people were interested in like just listening to the deck as I'm talking to a judge was just made me feel pretty happy.
That's true. Yeah. And then people can kind of put it 2 and 2 together. Okay, I see. I gotcha. That's really cool.
Afterwards, with the rest of the list, so we have our starter, and the starter is not as important. However, I did pick Grenache as my starter because, again, as this deck wants to blind second, it was very common for me to flip up Grenache, and my opponent would assume I'm on Crest Rose.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a very good point.
So a lot of people would try to avoid giving me damage on turn 2 because they're scared of the Column Bard play on turn 2.
All right, that's true.
And that's how I try to dance around the early game, because if they didn't give me damage on turn 2, that means I didn't have to worry about combo pieces going to damage.
That is big brain, bro. That is a meta call where it's like they thinking you're Night Rose, but no, you're something else. That's awesome. Very smart.
Afterwards, it's like a pretty stock standard trigger lineup. So we're playing 4 grade 3 heals. Again, it's your stride fodder. It's your please, I don't want to die against Victor and things.
Yeah,
it's just a good card.
Early game. Yeah, just in general. Absolutely.
We are playing 2 copies of Mick the Ghost. This card is extremely strong. I don't know why this came back from 1. And I don't know why people aren't playing more copies of Mick the Ghost, because this card just says return back into the deck, which means you can return a stand trigger back into your deck, which is fairly important in some situations. But more importantly, this also just gives power. And the power is helpful when you brick and your Hakusui goes into damage. This is still the standard combo that you showed off.
Yes.
4 units infinite power.
Yeah. You're basically given 10k per iteration to the units. Yep.
And it's a great card. Also avoids deck out if you're playing a normal game of granblue. You can sometimes choose your opponent by using Bartholomew. On attack, counterblast 1, call 3. Let's say you're at 3 cards in deck, so your opponent's not expecting the Bartholomew to be able to do anything. And
just
then
swing.
You call Skull Dragon Beatrice to the back, and then you call Mick the Ghosty to the front. Mick the Ghosty skill to hollow itself and gain the effect, so you give your Vanguard plus 10k power. And then you use Beatrice to call back Nightstorm. And then the Mick the Ghosty, because it's hollowed and has the red text, it goes back into the deck, and then you have 4 cards in deck. So suddenly your opponent has to guard the Bartholomew, which is something that they weren't prepared for.
That's so good. Like, I'm just thinking about those moments. It's like old school granblue too. Like you're close to deck out, and you're like, well, let me put a stand trigger back in.
Yep,
you know,
it's old school granblue, and I love it. So we're also playing 3 copies of Gustion. PGs are nice, especially when you fight decks like OTT, or sometimes even if Fenrir tries to kill you on History Collection Stride. The PGs are just really nice to have, and they're draw triggers.
Yes. Give you the extra card.
Yep. And then we have 2 Stride Fodder crits. I love Chad. Chad's great. I love the name as well, but it's pretty stock standard. You just need Stride. If you can get to Stride, you win the game, so why not play a little more Stride Fodder?
Yep.
Then we're playing 4 copies of Rough Seas Banshee. Again, a card from BTO2. It's extremely old.
Yes.
And the effect shows. It just says, into soul, you may draw a card.
Yep. Simple, but very effective in granblue.
Yep. Simple, but very effective. Also, you can scare your opponent because you can just put it into soul and not draw.
That's true.
It sounds crazy, but I've done it several times.
I forget sometimes about that, actually. Yeah, that's a good point.
And then we are playing Valnot. My list is playing the Stochea version of Valnot.
Okay.
I want to mind game my opponent. This card, at first glance, looks like an SP Bless Favor.
Yeah, it does.
And so when you're just doing the loop, people aren't paying a ton of attention. And when you stack the Overtrigger, they assume you're using Bless Favor. And so then when you drive check it, they'll sometimes say you need to draw a second card. When you do not, because Valnot does not make you draw if you have a standing rearguard. Right.
That's a good point.
So
you can get the extra attack that way, and they're like, "Wait, what? This is not the right card in my mind." Yep.
It catches people off guard because they misguard how they're supposed to, and sometimes that's like when you brick and you have to go on a different stride other than Bartholomew. That could be the difference maker between you winning and you losing.
True.
For our orders, we are playing one copy of Bracing Angel Ladder. I'm sorry, this card is completely broken. If you ever want a combo, this card just says your opponent can't interact with you, and it's just really strong. And then also it is grade 3 for Flanger, which is why I'm playing Flanger. But then we are also playing the one copy of Elementary Sanctitude, just because, again, this works really well with the Strange Food preparation, which we mentioned at the very beginning. And in a worst case scenario, it's just a free PG to use if you're being extremely aggressive.
True. That's insane too. The worst case scenario, it just does what it does because it just enables you with the loop and everything else prior because you get that extra card in hand. That's really good.
Yeah, great card. I do love Elementaria, even though I don't like using it all that much. So in our G zone, we have a pretty stock standard G zone, I would say. So we're playing the one copy of D series Obadiah. It's just a good 0 CB stride. Sometimes you're digging for the Greed Shade to then add back the kill trigger for the CB. Sometimes you already have everything you need, but maybe you're still digging for maybe you just want to dig for a little bit. Maybe you're not so sure you can win on this turn, so you just go into this Obadiah instead. Sometimes you're worried about if you're worried about anything, you can just go into this Obadiah if you don't have any damage, and then you can just use the effect, go, and especially if you brick, you can attempt to find some pieces.
I see your point.
We're playing the one Harmonics Messiah. You have to run this for the Guardian Shield ticket, especially because this deck is a blind going second deck. So you do really want the Guardian Shield ticket.
Extra shield. Yeah. Plus you get a free card. Yeah.
Yep. But additionally, in case you do have all the pieces in your hand, but you just need the damage, sometimes you can just go into Harmonics and you can just get a free card draw, free damage, and just proceed to then loop through your opponent. That's
right, because you're still Magnolia, you're Silver Horned in the name. Yeah, that's good.
We are playing 2 copies of Oriana. I think every granblue list should be playing at least 2, sometimes 3.
Oh yeah.
Even. The card just says it's just a PG most of the time. Counterblast 1, PG the attacking unit, it's pretty strong.
Yep. But plus you mill heavily in your deck, so it's always live.
Yep, you're aiming to try to mill. If you think you have to go ride grade 3 first, and then tank a stride turn, look to try to mill to 20 cards or maybe 18. So that way when you guard, you're at 20, and then Oriana just has -2 crit, which means that you can stop a rear guard that has an additional crit on it.
Even better. Yep.
We are playing 1 copy of Bartholomew. This card is just the best finisher in granblue. The triple door. So the continuous ability makes it extremely hard to survive the turn. And then its auto ability lets you effectively get 3 additional attacks, which is crazy.
With Daimanaru. Yep.
Yeah, with Daimon. Even if you're not playing Daimanaru, more often than not, you're calling a Night Storm in addition to a Skull Dragon, and that still gets you the 3 extra attacks you're looking for.
That's so true. Yep. You just need an extra CB. Yep.
Bad Bounty is in the deck just in case I need to do some Flanger OTK builds, specifically against Genesis, but sometimes I'll go into Bad Bounty where I think, I don't know if I'm going to kill with a normal loop. Maybe there's a Honolly that I have to be worried about, and so I'll just stack a bunch of crits, and then overtrigger, and then I'll swing Bad Bounty to stack all the crits onto the Flanger, and then just attempt to kill my opponent with a 4 crit Flanger into 4 crit, 4 crit. And hopefully that's enough to kill my opponent. Then we have Big Obadiah. So this card, if you are completely bricking, you have 1 damage, you have no combo pieces at all, this card says you may just go to your loop, questions asked. The only weakness of Big Obadiah is that this stride isn't that good at finishing the game, but a 1 card go to your infinite loop is pretty good. So this is why we still play Big Obadiah, even as
makes sense.
We're playing 2 Negronoras. Again, this card is completely unfair. It's just a free PG. Yes, you do have to Soul Blast. Yes, you do have to G Flip. But when you only need to survive 1 stride turn at most, this card just makes it extremely easy to survive as long as you have 2 heal triggers in your hand.
Yeah.
Then we have 1 copy of Negro Mode. The card, because we mill so aggressively, this card just says Soul Blast 1, 30k shield. This is just an amazing G-Guard to use. I'm not sure why people have been cutting it from their lists. I think Soul Blast 1 for the 30k shield is really strong in the meta, and you should just be playing 1 copy if you can.
Yeah, especially if you don't have GB Live. You can use this immediately. Yep.
And especially because sometimes you don't have the CB for Orianna.
That also too.
Soul Blast 1, 30k shield is more than enough. So this is where I have some
classic.
We're playing Goauche. This is a very classic from way back in the day.
Yep. GBT 08.
This card is only in here for the shout mill jump. In the situation where your opponent does give you 1 damage somehow, and they brick, so they're maybe halfway through the combo and they're unable to continue on, you can just use Goauche just to remove all the combo pieces in your soul and then just go through your loop. This might not seem as impactful, but there are some games where you end up soul charging all the cards that you need to soul blast, and you just don't have a way to soul blast. So Goauche is just a free way to soul blast everything.
It literally is. Holy crap! I just thought of that. Wow, good point.
Then we have Corpse Dragon. This is just if you know you're going to survive. This just gets you more milling. It's a great card. I love this G-Guard, even though it's not that strong. Mill is free mill.
Free mill.
Then we're playing. So this is an actual flex slot in your G zone. You may play whatever you'd like. I'm just playing a Balan Arena because I have it. You can make this an additional G-Guard. You can make this an extra Bartholomew in case, an extra Bad Bounty. You can choose wherever you'd like with Balan Arena here.
Nice.
And then we have Seabreeze. So this is the history collection before we had history collection.
Yep.
I think this card catches a lot of people off guard because they don't remember how to grade 2 game properly, or you need to make sure that you have to re-ride and then you have to re-ride and then you can push, but then you have to continuously re-ride over and over again. Otherwise, Seabreeze live. This is where I try to mind game my opponent because I'll stay on grade 2. So until they ride grade 3, I will do my best to stay on grade 2 and just attack the rear guards they're trying to aggress me with. That way, once they forget to ride grade 2 again, I'll ride Magnolia and combo them on a Seabreeze turn so they don't have G-Guards active.
Yeah, makes sense. And they gave you the CB for Seabreeze anyway at that point.
Yep. Because they're trying to kill me before I get to my loop.
Yep, makes sense.
And then we're playing 1 copy of Ractome. Again, you don't have to play Ractome. I just played it because I have one, and it's sometimes your hand gets a little cloggy and you just want to discard, try to find stride fodder, or maybe discard value. So it can be nice, but it's very rare that you go into this card.
Gotcha. That was good. You actually covered some questions in my head as I was thinking about certain matchups, certain scenarios. I'm glad that even with Goauche, you mentioned why it was against the shout matchup. And from your tournament run, is there anything that you wanted to highlight? Maybe some key moments or maybe some moments that didn't go in your favor?
So my top 4 match against Narukami, I couldn't play around Sharoff. That's a card that forces you to draw a card from your deck. And unfortunately, because of that, I did end up decking out. So I wasn't able to win that matchup. Yeah. Narukami players, you should be playing Sharoff just because it does screw over a lot of the stacking decks right now. So Fenrir, OTK, and granblue, it's very good at making your opponent have to think on how to deal with it.
Yeah.
If your opponent even is aware of the card. Because I've been talking to so many people, and maybe one person out of the 30 people I've talked to know what the card is.
Yeah, I didn't even know that card existed until you just said it right now. I just learned something new today.
There's also my top 8 match against the Great Nature player. Shout out to him. He played as well as he possibly could. He actually grade 1 gamed me because he was on Neziobi, which has the effect on hit draw card while on Vanguard Circle.
Yeah.
And so I chose to go second, and I rode a 7K, and then instead of him riding up to grade 2 immediately, he stayed on grade 1 to try to put more pressure on me. Grade 2, he can't, if he stays on grade 2, he's going to die to Seabreeze. So if he stays on grade 1, he doesn't have to worry about Seabreeze.
Correct. Yeah, he has another turn at the very minimum. Yep.
And then he went for it on a history collection stride turn, which honestly was way more eye-opening than I thought it would be. I thought that turn was just going to be extremely weak and nothing was going to happen. No, I did have to think about how to not take damage. And that was a lot more difficult than I thought it was going to be. So I did take a little bit of risks to go through it, but we did manage to pull it off in the end.
No, it's really good. Wow, great nature too on top of that. Kudos to that player too.
Great nature was rough. Also, I think it was round 6. My opponent was on Victor, but he bricked and was unable to. He didn't have a grade 1 in hand, so he G assisted, and then he didn't have a Victor in hand, so he decided to stay on grade 2 because he had watched me in the previous rounds. So in round 3, I had forgotten my combo when my opponent's on grade 2, and I just messed it up over and over again. So I gave my opponent the win. They saw me fumble it, and they thought, hey, if I stay on grade 2, there's a chance they could fumble it again, and that's my best shot at winning in this situation.
It's a very smart assessment. Yeah.
Especially because I think he knew my old list as well, which wasn't running strange fruit preparation. And so he realized that if I wouldn't be able to combo while he's on grade 2. Just unfortunately, I did actually add the card back in for Mexico to do it.
Right. That's a good point too.
Otherwise, I think that was it for premium for the key matchups I did enjoy.
Cool. No, that's really good. That's very helpful, very insightful. Is there anything that you want to mention to premium players about the deck or just the format or anything in particular? So
if you're fighting Magnolia, you should be under the assumption that you can't give Magnolia the ability to stride. So you should be looking to try to kill the deck as fast as possible. There are 2 ways where you can beat the deck. One of them is to force them to brick by getting combo pieces and damage. And then the other way is just to kill them before they're able to stride. Try to make sure your opponent can never go into Seabreeze. And if your opponent has to go into Big Obadiah, you're in a much better spot at surviving. Gotcha.
So aggro is the answer in most cases.
Aggro is the answer. I do know it's really scary because if you aggro a Crest Rose, you might just die.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's a good point.
You better be able to predict correctly which deck you're going against, because if you guess, you might just blow up.
That's true. I would say this, your deck is more complex than the other decks that other players would be willing to attempt at a regional. But at least you given the advice to can at least give some direction when they do face a player potentially playing the same deck or a similar deck too. So it's always appreciated in that respect too.
Yep. I think the deck isn't as strong as people make it out to be. I think it's the reason why this deck is so strong is because it preys on the preconception that you need to play it slow against granblue. You need to try to whittle them down and just use Honolys against them, because Honoly isn't as impactful against this deck as one would first think. And it's slowing the game down against this deck doesn't work because the deck works. This deck is a well-oiled machine. It runs super smoothly as long as you can find the pieces. Yeah, it's really refined. I could just tell, like, you and your friends that have play tested this list months, probably more than a year or two, over just time. It's developed into what it is now today. So that's really good. Do you have any advice for players, just to not necessarily just for premium, but for like tournament stuff? Like, you've topped multiple times already, and then this weekend you've qualified for Worlds like twice on top of that. So is there any advice for players that may be struggling to get their first top, or maybe struggling to get their first invite? Any advice you'd like to share? Play a deck that you enjoy. Yes, the best decks in the format are the best decks in the format for a reason. However, you can always attempt to find a way to try to maneuver a deck that you enjoy to be able to beat certain matchups. Like, for example, I know in Mexico we had a Youthberg player in top 8. The guy was not expecting to make top 8. In fact, he mentioned to me that he was only playing the deck because he loved Youthberg. Playing it since it was released, back when he couldn't even afford Tempest. So he quite literally only was playing with Gust and a Dream back then. None of the expensive cards that you needed for Youthberg. Fair enough. Right. Just enjoying your deck and trying to find the special techs you need to be able to beat the decks. Trying to find game plans and finding a winning image to be able to try and catch people off guard is very important, even if your deck isn't as strong. And that's a pretty good way to try to see if you can top or get close to topping. You'll know what works and doesn't work from testing, especially if you have good players around you. But even if you don't necessarily have the best players around you, just being able to play your game, you'll be able to see what cards just aren't as worthwhile in your deck and which cards are actually like really integral to your list, and then you should be looking to try to abuse those cards as much as possible.
That's beautiful. Well said. I tell people sometimes it's like, if you have a deck that's like one of the best decks, but you don't enjoy it, more than enough times, it's best to take the second best deck that you have that you do enjoy, right?
No, for sure.
And you have your moments where things just align that day as well. Like that guy you mentioned from Mexico, he's like, I didn't expect to make it to top 8, you know?
Yep.
That day he did, right? Things happen. And it's not like you're taking a really bad deck that you enjoy, but it's just like, how can you increase the odds with a deck you do enjoy and do as best as you can, right? That's the whole philosophy in that sense. So thank you for sharing that too. With any final thoughts, did you want to share what's the expectation for Worlds for you? Or do you feel like that's so far out that even with December's potential ban list, is that hard to tell? It's okay if you don't know, that's fine too. But I'm sure people are always interested to see what other people think to what to expect.
Yeah, so if you are going to see me at Worlds, just know I am going to be playing granblue.
Love it.
It's not going to be it's an open secret. I'm playing a deck. Who knows what's going to be based off the December ban list. I have several different decks ready depending on what cards get hit. And if all of them somehow get hit, I'm going to look to try to abuse another standard card. I think granblue has the best synergy with the standard cards currently, and it's just so underexplored that people just haven't found the right cards to be able to perform these kind of crazy feats.
Yeah, and it's something that like this is your deck too. Like if people are going to face you, they're like, hey, Baowow is playing Magnolia granblue, you know, that type of deal too.
Just hoping that Magnolia still exists in some capacity.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy in Vanguard, especially with like premium legacy type formats, right? Just in general, like people can like, it's so and so. More than likely, they're going to play X deck just because that's their clan or their favorite deck or something. Like it's kind of cool just to have something like that in Vanguard too. Cool. Last thing, any quick shout outs that you want to do?
Shout out to, was it Lobo on Discord? Or I think
Lobos. Yep.
Lobos, yeah. Thank you for the deck list for standard. Sorry my friend didn't tell me that it was your deck list at first, but it was very helpful. I did figure out a different way to play how I like it, but it was there. The 3 Filias was definitely a tech slot that I did enjoy a lot. And so, yeah, all credits to him for the deck list. I just played the deck to second place, as well as shout out to the entirety of the Mexico community. Lovely people, made sure my trip was safe, was fun, and I could always look back and say that this was probably the best experience I had at any BCS so far.
That's awesome. Any folks at home?
No, I don't think any of them. Yeah, not to be rude, but I didn't really test the Magnolia deck all that much with them because I wanted to keep it as much of a secret as possible for Toronto. And then afterwards, everyone was like, no, I don't want to play against you. The deck's degenerate. I'm like, yeah, I mean, I understand it's degenerate, but it's hard to get testing in that case if no one's willing to really play into it. But I will shout out, I guess there was Kai and Entropy who were willing to help me test standard at least, so I could get a little bit more familiar with Heart Luru.
That's cool. Awesome. Anything else, or that's pretty much it for shout outs?
That'll be it for shout outs. If anyone else wants a shout out, they better play test against me.
It's all good. It's all good. No, I appreciate you for coming onto the channel and being able to share your list, your thoughts, or ratios. Like this deck list is not the average deck, you know, and so this is super helpful. And I'm sure people will maybe ask more questions in the comments. That's okay too. I'm sure you're more than willing to answer any comments as well.
If anyone has any kind of questions, feel free to leave a comment down below. I'll do my best to answer in a timely manner. Also, please like and subscribe to this video and this channel. Jaime is a great person and absolutely great content.
Oh, I appreciate you, brother. Always appreciate a shout out. Thank you again. Well, that's it, amigos. And on to the next one. Bye.